right? So right now, let's say the dollar is running at 90 INR right now. And after 1 year, when I'm supposed to get the investment, so is it worth to invest right now in the returns that I'm going to get after 1 year is what I need to identify and understand. Similar to NPV, net present value. And then there is opportunity cost, another chosen. Communicating the business case is as important. Is it communicating the strategy as business case for approval is very different to communicating it to the strategy is widely communicated, some parts of it externally. The staff, partners, suppliers, even consumers should understand how the organization wants to position itself. Whereas business are only shared with stakeholders who will approve and fund the strategy. So we may not present the complete strategy to everyone. We may just present the elements which are required for the business case. For example, the investment that we are responsible for approving it or authorizing it. So business cases are always communicated to the appropriate stakeholders together with the strategy itself. Well, of course, we define how are we going to do things. Who is the intended audience? They say business cases enable key decision makers to approve, reject, or modify. Right. So, of course, decision is taken either to approve, reject, or modify a business case. The audience of the business cases should include the stakeholders who are expected to fund the initiative and the advisor to those stakeholders. Well, of course, someone to whom we want to present the business case and any advisors that we may have. The audience is defined by the scope of the initiative or the strategy. So, who will be considered is dependent upon the scope of the overall initiative or the strategy. And the review cycle of strategy. If a strategy is broken down into initiatives, each one should include a business case designed around the time frame of that initiative. Well, of course, we need to define as to when do we expect that uh, business case to be executed or the initiative to be executed. If there are multiple initiatives, then each one should have it. Must indicate the start and the finish of the initiatives and the measurable checkpoints in between. Well, again, yes, we need to ensure that we have the start and the finish of the initiatives, and at what points are we going to check the business case. Each business case must be reviewed each time the strategy is reviewed. Well, of course, when we are reviewing the strategy, that is when we need to review the business case as well. Traditionally, business case used to be a static document. Once approved, it would be kept aside. A static document, it's a dynamic document. So we need to go back and forth and review the business case in order to identify and make sure that we are moving in the right direction. If a business case we changed to reflect that? Well, of course, we need to go ahead and change the strategy to ensure that the business case is not viable. And they say always review business cases after should be reviewed after the completion of the current initiative in the strategic planning cycles. Well, of course, once we have achieved the operational success, then we need to measure it against the business case to identify and ensure how true the assumptions were that were mentioned in the business case. Format of a business case. Usually we see executive summary, high level view of business case, introduction, statement of the problem, straightforward articulation of the problem being solved, analysis, situation behind the problem, and then discussion of the possible options, identify potential solutions to the problem described. So, of course, if I have to reach a destination, there can be multiple routes to go to that destination. So, I can always go ahead and discuss these options in order to how better solve the problem. Would be a good idea to do it. The cost, including the resource requirements, the likely timescale for the project, the anticipated return on investment with an explanation, and the risk, the possible negative outcome. So, whatever information is known at the time of the of creating the business case, we should put all that information in there. Recommendations for the project and how and the conclusion, which is the reminder of why it is essential to address a problem. Now, again, like I said, that ITIL is non-prescriptive. This is just some suggestions that we should always keep in a business case. Just in case we want to add some information, remove some information from it, we can always go ahead and do that. They say challenging a business case means challenging the strategy upon which it is based. Ensure that the stakeholders are involved in defining the strategy in the first place or in amending it after the business case has been rejected. Well, of course, we need to involve all the concerned stakeholders when creating the business case, or if in case they've rejected it, even then we need to be it. Dealing with resistance. They say the key to dealing with resistance is of digital and IT strategies defining the business strategy. The digital and IT strategy must use the business strategy as a starting point. Well, of course, whenever we are creating a digital and IT strategy for digital transformation of the organization, sorry, we first need to consider the overall business strategy as to what concerned with the teams that would be involved. We need to go ahead and create the digital and IT strategy. They say the digital and IT strategy must show how it will make the business strategy more achievable, how it will make its initiative more cost effective, how would it support the business strategy to be achieved, and how would the initiatives can be more cost effective. There are situations where organizations resist digitization even when its survival must be an initiative of the most senior executive or the member of governing body? Well, of course, many times as an organization, they may just resist making changes or doing the digital transformation, even when their survival depends on it. So, in that scenarios, the senior most executive within the organization needs to undertake the initiative. That was the module wherein strategy must be managed with shorter cycles, with more scenarios and strategic options considered than previously. Elements of strategy document could be the purpose and vision, scope and authority, context, objectives and key results, budget and investment, principles, roadmap, and the initiative overviews. Furthermore, the financial aspects is what we discussed. The financial aspects of strategy should reflect and support the organizational goals and customer needs. Services are within the scope and policy set by the financial strategy. An organization depends on the funding available and the investor appetite for risk. For planning for growth, the strategy must specify the level of demand at which the additional investment is required. And then there is portfolio optimization. The portfolio management encompasses several portfolios, including the product and the service portfolio, program and the project portfolio, and the customer portfolio. A strategy is a business case in and of itself. However, each strategic initiative, a business case must show how it will help the organization achieve its vision, fulfill its purpose, and sustain its market position. Let's look at a few questions. What can the Yep. Okay. Yes. So describing the organizational values and can be used to define an organization's, which is a common digital charging model about different packages with increasing level of features at different price points. That is tiered. During which phase of strategy planning takes place? Well, how do we get there? Of course, when we're talking about strategy planning, we need to define how are we going to achieve it. So see, now you're getting the whole of questions as to how to answer those questions. So the more you try these questions, the better it is. Again, about the strategic approaches for both the steps that we have. But before we do this, do we need a break? Yeah. So let's break for 20 minutes and come back. All right. Great. Thank you so much, sir.